All right, in our previous lecture, we manipulated HDFS using the UI in Ambari, just using it through a web interface, and that was a little bit too easy. Now, if you're the kind of guy who's more of a hacker or a programmer, you might prefer using a command line interface, so actually logging into the computer, your master node or your client node, whatever you want to call it, and manipulating your HDFS file system from a command line. We'll show you how to do that now. But first we need some sort of a terminal that lets us to connect to our instance. And again, first of all, I've actually made sure that I'm running my VirtualBox already. So if you haven't done this already, make sure you've opened up the Oracle VM VirtualBox, selected the Hortonworks Sandbox image, and started that off. So I've already done that. Now I'm using something called PuTTY on Windows, and on Mac OS you might just use the built-in terminal instead, but if you're on Windows, you'll want to look up PuTTY. And if you go to putty.org, you'll find where to download that from. And you can just download the actual executable there and run it. So I've actually attached that to my, let's close this. So once you install PuTTY, it will look something like this. Now, to connect to this virtual machine that I'm running from my local machine, what I'm going to do is open an SSH session to it. And what I'm going to do is, for the host name, I'm going to type in Maria_dev at 127.0.0.1. And this particular sandbox is exposing telnet on port 2222 as opposed to 22. So make sure you enter that as well. Now I'm going to save this as HDP so I can get back to it easier next time. Okay. So let's hit open. And I'm just going to type in for the password Maria_dev, and I'm in. Cool. All right, so let's actually copy some data into Hadoop just by looking at it here. First of all, let's mess around with it. So the way you actually manipulate HDFS from the command line on a Linux host here is by using the Hadoop command, and then fs, and then dash whatever command you want to do. So for example, if I want to do an ls to list what's in the file system, I would do something along those lines. And we can see here the contents of my home directory in HDFS for Maria_dev. So again, Hadoop fs-ls. So let's go ahead and create a directory in here to hold my MovieLens ratings data. So we'll type in Hadoop fs-makedir, just like that. And we're going to make a directory called, what did we call it before? ml-100k, right? Now, some of you might not be totally comfortable with messing around on a command prompt like this, and if not, that's okay. You can just watch. You don't have to follow along. But, you know, I think most of the students here are going to be of such a background where this is valuable. So let's go ahead and make sure that that's actually in there, Hadoop fs-ls again, and we should see our ml100k directory, and sure enough, we do. Very cool. All right, so let's actually upload some information into this. We're basically doing exactly what we did through the Ambari UI, just from the command line, but in this case, we're uploading data into HDFS from the local file system, but since we're not going through a web browser on our Windows machine, our local file system actually means this Linux host itself. So you can see if I do an ls by not using Hadoop, I'm looking at what's in the actual MariaDev home directory here, and I have nothing on my local file system yet to play with. So the first thing I have to do is actually get some data on here that I can play around with. Now I've actually uploaded a copy of the MovieLens dataset to my own server, so let's go ahead and grab a copy of that. You can just type in wget, which is a Linux command that retrieves information from the web. http://media.sundog-soft.com. Just like that. Make sure you got all the spelling right. That's just a server that I own. /hadoop/ml-100k/u.data. And that should go retrieve my copy of u.data from my web server to here. Now if I type in ls, I'll see that sure enough, or ls-la to see more details, u.data is there, and it does appear to be in one piece. So let's upload this into HDFS. To do that, we're going to do Hadoop fs, just like every HDFS command, -copy from local. And we're going to start with what we're copying, which is u.data. And it's just going to do that from my current directory. And we're going to put that into from our home directory in HDFS. So this is going to be a relative path, ml-100k/u.data. So that has copied from my local file system on this host into HDFS, the u.data file. So let's go ahead and make sure it's actually in there. We can do Hadoop fs-ls ml-100k to see what's inside the ml100k folder. And sure enough, there it is. It got there in one piece. So, woohoo, cool. All right, let's go ahead and clean up after ourselves again like we did before. To do that, you would do Hadoop fs-rm for remove, ml-100k/u.data. And that moved it to the trash. And we can also remove the ml100k folder itself with Hadoop fs-rm-dir for remove directory, ml-100k. And now we should see that things are nice and clean again, the way we left it. And sure enough, we're back to the way we started. So, brief overview there. If you want to see what else you can do from Hadoop FS, you can just type in Hadoop FS, and it will give you a list of available commands. If you scroll up here, you can see you can do pretty much everything you can do from the local file system command line. So, append, concatenate, copy files, copy to local. If we wanted to actually retrieve that information back, we could have done a copy to local command, just like we did copy from local. You can also change permissions, just like you can in Unix, if you want to manage that sort of a thing. A lot of times you kind of assume that if someone has access to your Hadoop cluster to begin with, they probably can be trusted, but more and more you got to think about security these days, so make sure that you tie down those permissions as appropriate. Make directories, you can move things around, and we played with some of these other commands already. So there you have it. Using HDFS from the command line, as you can see, it's a lot easier to use it from a UI, so you probably will gravitate toward that. But command line interface is available, and that can be useful if you're writing, for example, scripts or anything like that that do need to be run on some periodic basis. So there you have it. Now, if you're done for now, you can just go back to this terminal here and type in exit to get out of it, and that will get you out of PuTTY. And then if you really want to shut down for now, you can go back to your virtual machine here, go to machine and say ACPI shutdown to shut that down cleanly. And once that window goes away, you're okay to actually close the VirtualBox window. You can do the same thing by right-clicking on this and saying close ACPI shutdown as well. So that's how you're going to get out of here cleanly, such that you can actually start things back up safely again for the next lecture. All right, that's HDFS. We've actually learned about how it works, what's going on under the hood, and we've actually messed around with it, got our hands dirty, using it through both the Ambari UI through a web server, and also using it directly from a command line interface. So there you have it, HDFS. You are now an HDFS quasi-expert. Congratulations. So up next, we'll talk about some more of Hadoop's core.